Hi guys, Triple B here. We've seen the 5th week of the budget build battle tournament and has some very interesting decks making it to the top 8 and actually having a bit of a, I was gonna say issue in the finals, but wholesome sportsmanship is a better word for it, and we'll get to that as we get to the first place deck list. But if you haven't heard of the budget build battle format, the whole idea of the format is no rule box cards. So no Vs, no EXs, Radiants, and A-Specs, leave them at home. There's also a limitation of just 2 copies of a card with the same name in the deck. So special energies, trainer cards, Pokemons, makes it a little bit interesting for your deck building. For evolutions though, if it evolves into a stage 1 or a stage 2, you can have an extra copy of the basic for stage 1 or 2 extra copies if it goes into a stage 2, just to make a little bit more consistent for those builds. If you're interested in joining the next tournament though, they are held Friday nights in the Australian Central Time Zone. Be a link in the description of this video taking you through to the tournament sign up, and also looking into starting a North American version probably in the next week or 2 after the World Championships in Hawaii conclude. For the top 8 decks though, get to them in just a moment, but just showing off the players that did come out this week, seeing 18 people rocking various decks. Love to see it, all being shown here as other, which unfortunately you can't see because it's actually hidden under the chat, recording this live over on Twitch, so come hang out on the next stream. For the 8th place deck though, we saw Johnny running Regis. So Regigigas obviously having the Ancient Wisdom ability. Once during your turn, if you have Regirock, Ice, Steel, Lecky, and Drago all in play, you can just attach up to 3 energy cards from your discard pile to your Pokemon in play, giving you access to a plethora of interesting attackers. You got Regigigas just doing a flat 150 damage, you got Regice doing 100 damage and making it so Pokemon V can't attack, but well, they're not allowed in the format, so he's pretty much there to make Regigigas able to use the ability. Regirock doing 140, can't use the attack on your following turn, but solid number to hit, knocking out most Pokemon in the format, and also hitting weakness into some good types you may want coverage for. Regidrago giving you some draw power when it's in the active, getting you into a 4-card hand, and having a solid attack, hitting for 160. Registeel doing 220 and 50 less damage for each energy in your opponent's active Pokemon's retreat cost. So if they have free retreat, you're hitting them for 220 and they are going down. But if they're a hefty boy like Registeel, you might be doing like 0 damage potentially if they have 5 retreat costs somehow. I don't think anything has 5 retreat costs though. So 4 retreat costs, you're hitting them for 20, and that's just, it's kind of awkward for everybody involved. The Regilecky though does let you target your opponent's bench Pokemon doing 120 damage, or for 1 energy, it gets a trainer card from your discard pile back into your hand, so it can recur like draw supporters if you need, or even getting stadium cards back into your hand. Also, this is a little bit awkward, so taking a look at this list now, it looks like they had 3 copies of Artisan in the list. Gonna have to check that one. We did have a chat with them before the tournament that there was an illegal deck list in here, and it was submitted via a judge request. I just don't have that list handy, and well, this is kind of awkward, so apologies for that. If you did want to run this deck list though, you would have to just cut this out, probably just swap it into a second switch, to be honest. The rest of the cards in here though, we're seeing pretty standard stuff. Research Iono for draw power, Carmine for draw power as well. Great card because the first turn of the game you can use it when normally you can't use a draw supporter. Lets you get energy cards into the discard pile, helps find your other Regis, and then just accelerate those out and start swinging for attacks. Pretty solid deck. If you paid Regigigas on standard format, this is just a great deck that easily transfers over into the format and is a great one to pick up for new players. Getting 7th place, we are seeing Rema's Water Blast deck. Our Blast Box, I guess we should call it. He has Blastoise from Pokemon Go that has the Vitality Spring attack. Once during your turn, you can decide to end your turn by getting 6 energy cards from your deck and accelerating them to your Pokemon in any way that you'd like. It's a great way to charge up the Hydro Pump attack, doing a base damage of 90 and then 30 more damage for every water energy attached to this Pokemon. The other great way to accelerate water energy to this, well, you got Baxcalibur, which just lets you put as many water energy from your hand to your Pokemon as you'd like during your turn. So just rush energy onto Blastoise. Blastoise just, I guess, blasts away the competition. That's a lame joke, but we're rolling with it. And yeah, just really cool seeing a water type starter Pokemon making it into the top 8 in Blastoise. Last week, Rema did take Feraligatr and made it to the top 8, so it seems like he's kind of on a roll with that. And I wonder if we're going to see them bringing out some other basic water, not basic water Pokemon, starter water Pokemon making it into the finals. Maybe a Quaquaval deck in the future? Or Do we have Swampert? Is there a Swampert currently in the standard rotation? Be keen to see what they come up with. Having Bibberel for a draw engine in the deck though, as well as Iron Bundle, just giving you the refrigerated stream attack, doing 80 damage and making it so evolution Pokemon of the opposing player, if you hit them, they can't attack during the next turn, so a great way to lock out opponent's Pokemon from being able to attack you, while also having Hyper Blower, effectively just a free Gust card. So you can discard Iron Bundle and force your opponent to switch out their active with one of their bench, and then Blastoise just destroys them, or buys you a bit of time. The trainer cards in here, again, pretty standard stuff. We're seeing Arven, great way to get into item cards and tool cards, giving you access to evolution TM to start slowly evolving your Pokemon up, get your Wartortles, your Arctibacs, your Bibberels online, having Buddy Pop in a combo with that. Obviously just a solid combo in these two cards, and getting it off Arven is amazing. Since it is a water focused deck, you do have a Rita to grab one of your water Pokemon with a rare candy to quickly get a Baxcalibur or Blastoise online. Gotta love seeing that. And then also including Lady in here as a supporter card you don't often see. It's gonna let you search your deck for 4 basic energy and pop them into your hand. It's just a way to go, hey, Baxcalibur, put these on Blastoise and destroy something in the active. And yeah, it's gonna do that. Also having a reversal energy in here, so if you do fall behind a little bit in the early game, slap that on Blastoise, counting as 3 water energy is a great way to boost up your damage. And also, seeing some amazing tech cards in here. I feel like it's one of those things, Rema does a great job of building lists and not overlooking, well, the key pieces you might need, like having Counter Catcher. If you go behind in prizes in the early game, it's just, hey, I can use a Rita, I can get Counter Catcher, I can gust up something I want to take out and make my opponent struggle. Also having Lost Vacuum in this format is pretty powerful. We're seeing Luxurious Cape coming up in a lot of deck lists. Boosting up your opponent's Pokemon by an extra 100 HP might take you out of knockout range. And then they just go, yeah, I'm just going to grab Lost Vacuum and bring you back into range. Having Blastoise with scaling damage, though, it might be one of those cards you're okay with your opponent having, because it's like, you just put a 2-prizer in play for me to knock out, and I'm okay with that. So yeah, respect the heck out of that. An interesting stadium card showing up in here, though, being Lake Acuity, making it so your Pokemon that have basic water or fighting energy attached to them take 20 less damage from attacks, effectively bringing your Blastoise up to 190 HP and your Baxcalibur up to 180 as long as they have a water energy on them. So yeah, love to see it. In 6th place, we are seeing Raspberry, who's been fighting to get into the top 8, I think the last 3 weeks, and just bubbling out at 9. So finally seeing them push through and get in that spot, well deserved, and love to see it, especially with this deck. Running Festival Lead. So we've got Dipplin in here, has the Festival Lead ability. As long as you have Festival Grounds in play, when he attacks, you can attack twice. Do the Wave is going to do a multiplier of 20 damage for each of your bench Pokemon in play. So you max out your bench, you can do 100 damage for just 1 grass energy, hit something in the active. If it's bigger than 100 health, you just hit it again and yeah, it's going down. If it has 100 health or less, you knock it out, they put something else in the active, you'd knock that out too. So you could be taking 2 prizes in 1 turn with this cheeky little apple. Gotta love to see it. Comboing amazingly with Wacky's Boom Boom Groove ability. As long as the Pokemon in the active has Festival Lead, you can just search your deck for any card, pop it into your hand. It's a great way to add consistency in your deck, making sure you can get into a draw supporter for turn, or getting your Festival Grounds if you need it, or even just setting up a backup Dipplin, so when the one in the active gets knocked out, you just put a fresh one in the active, and then the following turn, the Wacky's ready to go. Wacky isn't just here for the Boom Boom Groove ability though. Being able to evolve up into a Rillaboom, can use Drum Beating for just 1 grass energy, and during your opponent's next turn, the attacks used by their defending Pokemon are going to cost an extra energy to use, and their retreat cost is going to be 1 more. So you can theoretically just lock something in the active while you're trying to buy a bit of time. Or with 2 grass energy on here, just do 180 damage and take a pretty big knockout. For bench protection though, this deck's running a little bit of a unique one in here. We've got Rabsca, so it is a stage 1. You do need to evolve up into it, which is a little bit risky, but it's going to prevent all damage and effects of attacks done by your opponent's Pokemon to your bench Pokemon. So having Rabsca in play takes away like devolution TM from your opponent being able to use it. It also makes sure that things that are trying to put damage counters out can't do it. A card that had seen some play in the format was the Hisuian Braviary that put 3 damage counters onto Pokemon that already have damage on them. We have Jirachi that prevents damage counters from basic Pokemon being able to put them out, but it doesn't do anything against evolution. So that was one that got around it. And then Rabsca just goes, no, I'm going to block that. I'm going to block devolution. I'm going to block any other shenanigans you're trying to do with my bench. Just get it out of here. Not having any of it. And yeah, respect it. Love to see it. Having Bibberel as a draw engine in here, Goldeen, just another card that says Festival Lead on it, means even if you don't have a Dipplin set up, just chuck Goldeen in the active. You have Festival Lead on there. Thwacking can get you any card you need, likely getting you into a Dipplin to get your engine online and start attacking. And comboing this with Rescue Board, you can just reduce the retreat cost of Goldeen by 1, making it a free pivot Pokemon with the Festival Lead ability. It's a really solid call for the deck. Iron Bundle also making an appearance in here. It's mostly in here for the Hyper Blower ability though. You're not going to be able to use the attack. Solid card to include though. Supporters in here, pretty standard stuff for the format. Boss, Arven, Iono. Seeing Colress's Tenacity making a showing though. It's a new card from Shrouded Fable, and it's going to let you get a Stadium and an Energy card from your deck and just pop them right into your hand. It's a great way to get your Festival Grounds, as well as ensuring you have a Grass Energy for turn to get the attack off Dipplin. They are running kind of thin counts at only 5 Grass Energy, so having a card that can get you into that is very useful. We've also got other ways to target your energy though, having a Bug Catching set, look at the top 7 cards, grab a grass Pokemon or basic grass energy you find there, so helping you dig a little bit. It's another way to help make sure you can find it. And obviously Thwacky, just being able to grab energy if you're in a pinch. Lana, just to be able to recur Pokemon, getting 3 non-rule box Pokemon from the discard, or basic energy if you need them. It's a great way to reuse your Dipplins. And also seeing Roseanne's backup showing up in the list, meaning that your Festival Grounds, you're limited to just 2 copies in your deck because it's the budget build battle format, but Roseanne goes, well, if they're discarded, that's fine, I'll just put them back into the deck. You even have Palpad, so theoretically you could technically have 4 Festival Grounds. You use Roseanne, put a 3rd one back in, use Palpad, put Roseanne back in, get Roseanne, put Festival Grounds back in. Yeah, that's cheeky. A little bit of shenanigans. Not sure if you'd ever really need to go that far with it, but the fact that you can get there and you have Thwackies to guarantee those pieces, right? Like Thwacky can grab the Palpad. If you have a second Thwacky, you can grab the Roseanne. You can do some shenanigans. Also seeing these interesting tech cards, Lost Vacuum, great to have in the list. Vitality Band, just to boost up that damage of the Dipplin, bring it up to potentially 110, means you can be knocking out targets with that little bit of extra health, like Cramorant that's just outside your range. You go, no, I'm taking that out and I'll take something out after it. Defiance Band, so if you fall behind in prizes, Dipplin can get up to 130, potentially doing that twice. And Evolution TM to get your Thwackies, your Bibberls, your Dipplins online quickly. Respect it, and Raspberry, again, congrats on making it to top 8, buddy. It's well deserved, and I know you've been working really hard to get there. 5th place, we're seeing Amir, who ran a, we're gonna call it the cold-blooded, well, I was gonna say killer, but I don't know that we should say it when talking about Pokemon, except I've already said it, so we're just rolling on. Blood Moon Ursaluna has the ability Battle Hardened. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench during your turn, you can attach 2 basic fighting energy cards from your hand to it. So it's a great way to accelerate energy out. Its attack costs 2 fighting and a colorless, so as long as the ability procs for the full value, 1 attachment per turn from hand after that, you can be doing 100 base damage on a basic, not too bad, and the damage is going to scale by 30 more damage for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. So you obviously want ways to get damage counters on them, and you've got a couple ways to do it in this deck. There is Frostlass, so between turns it's putting a damage counter on every single one of the opponent's Pokemon, as well as your own that have abilities. So a little bit risky, but a great way to spread it onto your opponent. And as you're putting damage counters on yourself, you're going to want to put them back onto your opponent. So there's obviously Monkey Dory in here. Dark Energy on there. Once per turn, you can move 3 damage counters from one of your Pokemon onto your opponent's Pokemon. So Frostlass is hurting your guys, likely the Monkey Dories and the Blood Moon Ursaluna. And then you just go, no, I don't want those. Put them on whatever's in the active, and then Blood Moon Ursaluna can do a big number. Or put them onto some small Pokemon and I'll do some spread damage to knock things out. Like Frostlass will knock them out between turns, or even a Veltal will knock them out. Since its attack Corrosive Winds is going to put 2 damage counters on each of your opponent's Pokemon that already have damage counters on them. So Monkey Dory can set them up, and a Veltal can finish them off. We also have Ting Lu in here as another spread attacker, just needing 1 fighting energy. It can do 30 damage, and if a stadium's in play, it's going to do 30 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Then you discard that stadium. We've got fairly high counts of stadiums in here, being 4, 2 Artisans, 2 Mezagozas, so Ting Lu is more often than not going to be able to do that bench damage. Frostlass is setting up damage counters on them, or Monkey Dory is putting some damage counters on things, and then Ting Lu's just kind of wiping them out. This is a very threatening deck, having a great attacker to hit the active, as well as multiple great ways to just mess with your opponent's board. We've got Manaphy for bench protection for ourselves, as well as Jirachi, and then the Bibberl engine just to ensure we have draw support. For supporter cards, pretty standard stuff here again. Arven, Iono, Cypher Maniac's Codebreaking is a great one to include. Just ensure that you have 2 cards you want to draw into off the top of your deck. As long as you have 3 or less cards in your hand, Bibberl just goes, cool, get me those 2 cards, and you're ready to go from there, which is pretty sick. Or even just ensuring that on the following turn, you're gonna hit a top deck that you really need to keep the game going forward, as well as Judge, just a great way to ensure, hey, I get cards, I'm disrupting my opponent's hand. It's solid. Pokegear to make sure you're always finding those supporter cards. Devolution TM showing up, obviously having a spread deck, it means that, hey, if your opponent gets into stage 2 Pokemon that have quite a bit of health, you just go, no, devolve those. Now they have like 60 HP and they're knocked out. Yep, makes a lot of sense in the deck. Also Bravery Charm, all of your attackers are basics, all of your Pokemon can have an extra 50 HP. They're already pretty bulky at 150, 140, and 120 HP. Yeah, you can get some pretty big threats just sat in the active and just declaring attack turn after turn after turn and putting a lot of pressure on your opponent. So love the list, Amir. Solid job cooking it up. I tried to do a similar concept, but mine didn't quite hit the mark, and yours absolutely hit it. So congrats, man. Well earned getting into the top 8 this week. In the top 4, we're seeing Rev, who ran a Dragon Fruit Punch, we're gonna call it, because it's got Regidrago, so 160 damage, or, well, not or, it's got an ability, so, or just a great Pokemon to have in the active to draw cards, right? Getting you into 4 cards in your hand once per turn while it's sat in the active. For your other attacker though, we've got Dipplin, so Syrup Catch, a Grass, and a Fire. Switch into your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active spot, then do 70 damage to the new active Pokemon. So just a great way to go, hey, you're trying to evolve that thing up on the bench, and I don't want you to do that. I'm gonna knock it out before you get a chance to. So it keeps a lot of pressure on them, which, respect that. To get the energy on here though, needing a Grass and a Fire, a little bit awkward. Regidrago needing a Grass and a Fire, a little bit awkward. Mirage Gate exists. So as long as you have 7 or more cards in the Lost Zone, you can search your deck for 2 basic energies of different types and attach them to your Pokemon. Different types, great. Attachment for turn, this can get going. Just Mirage Gate, this can get going. So of course we're running it as a Lost Box engine. Comfy, using the flower selecting, look at a card, put 1 in the Lost Zone. You've got Chorus to, well, look at 5 cards, put 2 in the Lost Zone. Means we can be running Cramorant to soften things up, maybe soften up an attacker, or use Dipplin, bring something in the active that has 180 HP, and then Cramorant finishes it off later, like into Excalibur, just be like, no, bring that in the active, I'll tap it, or Cramorant, and will finish it off. Definitely an interesting combos you can be pulling off, and having Sableye to clean up knockouts is also pretty solid. Manaphy for some bench protection, and then the rest of the deck, pretty standard stuff. Lance, though, being a bit of a unique one, so it lets you just get 3 Dragon Pokemon from your deck and put them right into your hand. Dragon Pokemon kind of are your main attackers for this deck, so being able to just access them quickly off a supporter card is kind of silly, especially since it can grab evolutions too. It doesn't say basics or evolution, it just says 3 Dragon Pokemon. So it can get you your Applin, your Dipplin, your Regidrago, also Tatsugiri. Did skim over this one, sit him in the active, grab a supporter card that's in the top 6 of your deck, attach a rescue board on it, free retreat, just pivot it around. Also a great card for Comfy to be able to use. So yeah, love this deck and solid cooking, Rev. In 3rd place, we are seeing Zen running Lost and Found, another Lost Box deck. This one, though, more so just leaning into what you would, well, typically expect from Lost Box. You're attacking with Cramorant, you're attacking with Sableye. I think that's pretty much it. There's an Iron Bundle in here, but you're not running Water Energy, so it's not attacking. It's just in here for Hyper Blower, Tatsugiri just to help to get into supporters, and Manaphy for some bench protection. The supporter cards in here, though, are very interesting. So obviously Chorus in here, Arven in here, Lana to be able to recur. You've only got 2 Crams and Sableye, so you want to make sure you're always getting them back in your hand. 2 copies of Night Stretcher, also to ensure the same thing. It's just like, hey, grab Cram, grab Sableye, go from there. Iono, great draw power and disruption. Arita gets you into your Manaphy or your Cramorant, love it. And Thornton, just being able to swap something out, a basic Pokemon from your discard pile with a basic Pokemon in the active, so you can go Comfy. Well, I guess theoretically you could go Tatsugiri, finds me Thornton, Thornton turns Tatsugiri into Cramorant, Cramorant knocks out the active. Yeah, that's kind of a dirty play. Also having Hassle in here, you can use this card only if one of your Pokemon was knocked out during your opponent's last turn. Look at the top 8 cards of your deck, put 3 of them into your hand, then shuffle the others back into your deck. So sort of like Chorus, except you're not Lost Zoning them, so you can keep valuable cards still in your deck. And Roseanne, another great draw supporter and really good in the late game. Once your opponent has 3 or fewer prize cards remaining, each player is going to shuffle their hand into their deck, you're going to draw 6, and your opponent goes down to 2. So it's sort of like Iono, but only one side. You're getting 6. It's like Iono in the early game for you, and in the late game for your opponent. It's fun. Also seeing the new Chorus card showing up in here, a great way to get you into your Artisan, your Pokestop, or your Beach Court. like it and can get you into energy to ensure that Sableye is able to use its attack or jet energy just to be able to bounce around your confies as needed. So yeah, very cool list in Zen. Solid deck building, bud. Second place, we are seeing Milky. And I'm saying second place, but it's technically first place, but it's second place because he's awesome and has amazing sportsmanship. So in the finals, there was an error with PTCGL where the person that won actually got bumped out of their game, which is technically a disconnect and would be weighed against that player. So they would have a loss, unfortunately. Like it's not a great situation to be in. It's unfortunately just one of the things of PTCGL we have to deal with. But well, Milky's awesome and was like, they were beating me. I was going to lose. Can I please give them first place? They're like, yeah, absolutely. Like if you're happy with that, and I ask the opponent, like, are you happy winning? And yeah. So for that great show of sportsmanship, instead of we normally do 25 codes for the winner, 15 for the person in second, and then we also do a unique deck list prize of 10 codes, which we'll be sorting out after I record this video. But we gave first and second place 25 codes just because of the amazing show of sportsmanship. So Milky, appreciate you, buddy, and always glad to see you in the tournament. And you seem to always be, I want to say at the minimum top 4. Pretty sure you've been in the top 2 the last 3 weeks. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think you're in chat right now. You can let me know. But Milky's deck, we're going to be calling Finely Aged Milk, because pretty much every Pokemon you see on here is the color of milk, and well, their name is Milky. We've got Archeops, letting you use the Primal Turbo ability, getting 2 special energy cards from your deck and attaching them to your Pokemon. That's great, gets things charged up. You got Chinchino. It's going to scale up by 70 damage for each special energy card attached to this Pokemon. Archeops, Chinchino, you've probably seen these before. It's basically Lugia Vstar, but there's not Lugia Vstar in here. We've got Bibarel as a draw engine, Snorlax as a solid basic attacker that can just be thrown down. Has Unfazed Fat, so prevent all effects of attacks done to this Pokemon by attacks of your opponent's Pokemon. So if like Sableye tries to put damage counters, you just ignore it. Thumping Snore does a flat 180 damage, but this Pokemon is now asleep after you use it, and you're gonna have to flip 2 coins. If either's tails, it's going to stay asleep. So it's typically one of those things of like, if you get this charged up, it's just going to be like sat in the active doing nothing until you see this special energy in here. We've got therapeutic energy. It makes it so the Pokemon this is attached to can't be asleep, confused, or paralyzed. Snorlax tries to go to sleep, and then therapeutic energy just like lightly tases it, and not Big Boy. You're staying active. You're going to hit them next turn too. And Snorlax just kind of has to roll with it. So that's terrifying. We've got Squovit in here, comboing amazingly with Bibarel. It's going to shuffle your hand onto the bottom of your deck, and then you draw 1 card. So if you're sitting at a full hand that's kind of bricked, you just go, okay, Squovit, get me into 1 card. Okay, Bibarel, get me into a fresh 5. That's pretty silly. Or like use a supporter card like Iono, get into 6, play cards out of that. Then use Squovit, then use Bibarel. Like you can sequence it in some very interesting ways just to maximize the amount of cards you're seeing in a turn, potentially getting up to 11 just off Bibarel, Iono, and Squovit. Actually, I guess technically 12 since Squovit's drawing you a card too. So 5 off Bibarel, 6 off Iono, 1 off Squovit. Yeah, it's kind of dirty. Also, since you are very special energy centric, you have Luxray in here. So the special energy reversal energy counts as 3 energy of any type as long as you're behind on prizes. So you can pay the attack cost of Wild Charge. You don't even need to use the basics of Luxray though, since Swelling Flash also allows you to just put this card into play from your hand as long as you're behind on prizes. So Luxray comes into play, Reversal Energy goes into it, they're literally a match made in heaven, and you start doing 180 damage into your opponent's active Pokemon, taking knockouts into most things and hitting weakness into water Pokemon. In this format though, water Pokemon are mostly capped at around 170 HP, so you're one-shotting them anyways, but then you can double it just for funsies, so yeah, that's sick. And speaking of water Pokemon, Manaphy's in here, so if you really wanted to, you could do 360 damage into a Manaphy. It's never gonna happen, but you could technically do it. For these supporter cards in here though, seeing the pretty standard stuff in here, Arven, Iono, Boss's Orders, Lana. Morty's Conviction is one we have kind of skimmed over earlier. It was in a few of the other decks. You discard a card from your hand, then draw a card for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Just a great way to straight draw into cards. So Bibarel gets you into a 5-card hand, Morty helps you dig a little bit further, and also Airzu. It's one that lets you get 3 evolution Pokemon from your deck that don't have a rule box. No rule boxes in this format, so it basically just says, get your Archeops, get your Bibarel, maybe get your Luxray if you really want to. You can do some pretty crazy stuff with this card. Something to mention, we are limited to 2 copies of a card with the same name, and that rule does only apply to basic Pokemon that can go past it. For the tournament though, we consider fossils as basic Pokemon since it counts as a basic Pokemon while it's in play. So that's why you're seeing 4 counts of this trainer card. This is a very rare exception, so keep that in mind if you want to comment down below, or if you already have before I got to this point, that's why it's in here. For all purposes of the game, well, of the tournament, we consider this as a Pokemon. He's got a stage 2 in here. He can have 4 copies of the basic. Love to see that kind of like cheeky deck building, Milky. Solid stuff. And then for other cards in here, pretty standard things. Bravery Charm makes it so your Snorlax has 200 HP. It's terrifying. I'm very happy I'm not seeing Penny in this list, or that would be even scarier, being able to just tank hits and loop it. And the special energy, Jet Energy, just kind of using it as a pivot. Therapeutic Energy, we already talked about how that makes Snorlax an absolute threat. Gift Energy, making it so when this Pokemon, or the Pokemon that this is attached to, gets knocked out, drawing into a 7-card hand, can make it for some very aggressive plays. Like you can just burn through your entire hand, have this on your active and be like, if you knock this out, I get a new hand, I'm gonna get another attacker online. You're gonna have a bad time, go for it. Yep, scary. DTE counting as 2 energy, so a quick way you can charge up Snorlax, just going for a DTE and any of these, like a therapeutic and a DTE. Snorlax is online just off 1 Archeops, so even if you don't have attachment for turn, this can still come out swinging as long as Archeops is out, or even just attaching for turn, first turn, second turn, Snorlax is a threat. Yep, love to see it. Mist Energy, another really good one in here. It's going to prevent effects of attacks used by your opponent's Pokemon done to the Pokemon this is attached to. So if you're scared of Devolution TM, removing your Archeopsis from play, chuck that on there. If you're scared of Sableye pinging down some low HP basic Pokemon that are just sat on your bench, chuck that on there. Yep, good card. As well as Medical Energy making a showing in here. So when you attach this to a Pokemon from your hand, it heals 30 damage. You don't get that effect by using Archeops. It needs to come directly from your hand, and did see a pretty interesting play where Milky actually attached this to an Archeops when the opponent was going to go for a devolution play. They were going to devolve it into a fossil that had 60 HP, but before they had a chance to do it, they checked Medical Energy on it. It was at 60 damage. They put it down to 30, and it was like, yeah, that play's not there anymore. It's like, yep, that's unfortunate. Solid play, but yeah, I was watching from the other player's perspective and I was like, oh, that hurt. And in first place, we're seeing King, who ran Okidogi. So it's got Diancie that can be sat in the active, making it so your opponent can't use supporter cards to gust around it. It just removes effects of supporter cards done to your basic bench, or bench basic Pokemon, which is solid. It's basically just to block boss's orders. Okidogi, if it's got a dark energy attached, it's gonna get an extra 100 HP and do 100 extra damage. Having Squovid in here though, being able to, well, we've talked about it before, just get you a card and remove your hand, and comboing amazingly with Bibarel. So it's basically get Okidogi online, have a big beat stick in the active, and just keep hitting them. Bravery Charm to boost up the HP of it is pretty threatening, and having Monkey Dory chuck a dark energy on there, move some damage counters around, so Okidogi eats a hit. Monkey Dory says, no, you have them. Love it. And since there is Luminous Energy, it can count for the psychic energy of the attack. Then just chuck one of these on there, and you could even use the Mind Bend attack, doing 60 damage and confusing your opponent's active Pokemon. Buying a bit of time and doing some pretty decent damage, to be honest. The rest of the cards, though, I feel like we've kind of talked about them all for the most part. Professor Churros showing up, being a way to loop your Okidogi, and also giving you a way to, I guess, bounce Bibarel out would be the reason you'd run this over something like Penny. If you ran Penny, you'd be able to just recycle Okidogi and keep the tools that were attached to it, as well as the energy, which would be an interesting inclusion. But I'd love to hear the logic for going for that, but I think it's mostly just that it gives access to being able to bounce Bibarel is probably the mindset there. I'd love to hear what you guys think is your favorite deck that made it in the top 8, and if you're going to try out the budget build format, what card would you be trying to make into a deck? I'd love to hear in the comments down below, and hope to see you in the next tournament. But till next time, stay golden, you guys.